Artful Innovations, the TV program that looks at art from an innovative perspective with views from around the world.
Okay. Greetings and welcome to Artful Innovations with host Denise Newton. Today, I have the honor and the pleasure of speaking with Amy Stevens, an artist with a master's in art from the University for the Creative Arts Canterbury. She has been featured in exhibitions as well as online showcases and written works such as Merge Magazine and in the book Critical Mass Art Beyond the Bubble. Hello, Amy, and welcome to the show. It is such a pleasure to meet you.
Hello, it's an honor to be here.
Thank you so much. I've been looking forward to our talk. I looked at a little bit of your stuff online, and I know that you are beyond amazing. And I know that our audience today will find the same. So let's just jump right into this. I always say when I'm talking to artists that I'm not an art person. I learn from you guys. I know what's pleasing to me, but to talk about the inner workings of art, I'm just coming into learning a lot about it, and it's so fascinating. So this is a great world to be in. And as a writer, I just find that the works are so similar. The work that a writer does and the work that an artist does is just so very similar. And it just makes the world, it presents the world to the world. And this is the way I see it, and that's why I love it so much. But for you recently started a blog. If I'm not mistaken, on the Value Art website. What's the name of your blog? Where it's published and how often?
So the blog is called Did You Hear About? And it can be found on the Valued Art website, and it's published once a month. I go through different artists, different exhibitions, upcoming things happening in the art world, and I kind of just, did you hear about it? So I kind of explore it, talk about it, and it's just kind of a discussion piece. But I also do interviews with curators and artists there as well.
Wow, I really like that name. Very catchy. Because I know if I see that, that would make me want to say, oh, "What is this about?" But I definitely, let me ask this: How does say if somebody in our audience right now want to be able to, can they subscribe to the blog? How does that work?
So it is completely free, and you can literally just search, "Did you hear about Amy Stevens?" Online, and it should come up. So you see my face, and you can start reading and start hearing.
Beautiful. Oh, thank you. Gosh, I got to go check that out myself. Okay, so I've seen some of your commentary. And you are very knowledgeable about art, obviously, because you studied art history at the university level. So that definitely would give you, an expertise in that. Uh, what has studying made you aware of when it comes to contemporary art?
So I would say that studying has allowed me to kind of further understand how artists create. So in contemporary art, a lot of it is all about the context. As opposed to traditional artwork, where it was about skill, how the old masters would paint, how they could lay a narrative. And modern art is a bit like that. You can explore a narrative, but there's always sort of a core, like an apple. So in the middle, you've got sort of what you're trying to discuss or showcase, whether that's political, economical, spiritual, and then that kind of builds in layers in how you show it to an audience or a viewer. And I think being able to, while at university, I did do a lot of creating work, I did do a lot of analysing and researching, and that's kind of it's enabled me to almost like peek into the mind of an artist, and being an artist myself helps, but to further understand, oh, why did they think that way, or why did they use that medium? What does that mean? I mean, I love looking for symbolism in things, and that's one of my biggest joys is to kind of pick apart art and analyze it, which, I have the opportunity to do now. But I think that's what's really integral to contemporary art is being able to not just look at it for how it is, but to sort of look completely at what it is, if you can excuse the hand movements.
Sure, absolutely. You place great emphasis on what you say, definitely. So how do you Amy, feel that the internet has affected the art marketplace insofar as connecting artists with the world market?
Well, I think it's a brilliant thing because you've been able to connect people who otherwise wouldn't have had the platform. Being able to say that, someone who was in a rural background or someone who hasn't had the access to go to galleries or meet artists now have that opportunity. And they have the opportunity to speak with other artists and put their work out there and even sell it and get a name for themselves. And I think that ability is so crucial to the growth of the art world and the art community and being able to be inspired by different people in different things. And I just think it opens everything up. And I think it's a great way. And, I'm happy that we get to be in the time of the internet.
I've always believed that art tells a story, and it can tell the history of whether that's, the world, the nation, even family. Does your art tell a story too?
Well, I'd say my personal art, it depends because I like being inspired by loads of different things. The biggest body of work I did was for my master's, and that was particularly looking at the Greek goddess Persephone, who was the goddess of spring, but she was also at the same time queen of the underworld, and she was married to Hades, god of the dead. And I really loved that duality. I loved someone who was, covered in flowers and everything, who was actually in the ancient text, sort of the hard hitter. Everyone thought sort of Hades was the one who delivered the punishment. Nah, it was Persephone, ruled with an iron fist. And I love this because that was their way of saying, this is how spring and winter happens. Well, Persephone's on Earth, you know, the land is lush, we have the wheat, we have the grain. But when she goes into the underworld, it becomes winter. Everything's barren because she's left. And then once she leaves the underworld, it's spring again. And I loved that narrative. I loved that duality and that metamorphosis of like life, death, renewal. And I did a whole body of work exploring that through different mediums. But other times I've just been inspired by something I watch or something I've seen. And so while there is I'd say there's always like a slightly macabre element because I am interested in mortality. I do think it kind of fluctuates depending what I'm interested in at the moment.
Oh my gosh, I love that story you just told. I mean, it was just like as you were talking, it was just like a movie playing in my mind. Like, oh my gosh, I just saw it all about this thing about the winter and the spring. That was great. Okay, I could stay on that one for the next 30 minutes, but
Me
I
too.
really love that. I'm going to have to look up that story because now you got me really interested in that. I've heard all about Hades. But what you said to, about her is just like, yeah, I want to know more about that. And the way that you related that to the art world was just absolutely genius. I thank you for that. That brings me to this question about you personally. You told the story so well. How did you, well, let me put it this way. As a child, what did you already have like this creative ability where art is concerned, or was it something or someone that inspired you to get on that path?
So everyone in my family kind of joke because there's not really anyone who's not to say they aren't creative at all. So sorry, mum and dad, if you hear this. But you know, I had a sort of a great grandfather who was a calligrapher before the war. But apart from that, there was no one who really sort of painted or drew. Um, but my parents were always very supportive, always putting pictures to the fridge and things like that. There was a time, so in the UK, obviously, we had GCSEs and you pick your options, and one of the ones I picked was art. It's safe to say the teachers did not think that I was capable. They did say to my parents, look, she's going to struggle. She doesn't have the skill set. And I'm forever grateful my parents did not listen. Very grateful for stubborn parents because they said, this is what she wants to do, and we're going to support her. If she's bad at it, she can be bad and learn from it. I wasn't bad, spoiler. But, they supported me. And, the first thing I did when I got my undergraduate and when I got my master's was, I wish I could take this back and say, don't you ever say to another child that they can't do something because It takes nothing. Kindness takes nothing. And you could have stopped me from pursuing what I love. And it's for a child in any subject. And, I just think you can't say that to someone, because as a teacher, and I've had experience teaching myself, you have to foster that spirit. Don't take that, because your words will have a lasting impact. And I'm just grateful that, my grudge has turned into something good.
Oh my gosh, I mean, that reminds me of kind of what's happening in some of our school systems around this country with budget cuts in education. Two of the departments that are getting cut quite a bit is art and music, sadly. So there's a lot of kids who may have, and I have seen it. I have pictures. I used to work with first graders, and I have so many pictures from these children. And they get so proud when they draw those little stick figures, and this is me, and this is my teacher, Miss Newton, and this is when we go to lunch, and they get so. And when I tell you, I got a box full of these that I've collected over the years, and they are just so dear to me. And it reminds me, I put a book together. It's been about 10 years ago, where I interviewed children, 50 kids from kindergarten through fifth grade. And I gave them all the same 7 questions, just asking them, about their life journey, where they want to be, things that they're concerned about in the world, how would they address it? And so many of them talked about art. I had a few that wanted to be illustrators, and writers, and of course, your typical basketball player, those type of things. But some of them wanted to be great artists. And one of my students, actually, she knew I love lions. And in art class, she actually painted a lion, and she was in fourth grade, and you would think this was done by an adult, because that ability, that talent was there. And when she gave it to me, and her mother had it framed and everything, and I showed it, and it was like, a fourth grader did this? A fourth grader did this. And so this is why it just pains me when I see that so many art programs are being affected by budget cuts. So, what do you think would be an alternative if children can't get? And I know some kids are just probably just born with the ability to be creative in that sense. But what about those who would become creative through the learning process if they couldn't get it in school? What do you think could be an alternative to that?
So to start off with, I do think it's heartbreaking, because I think, everyone should have that access to art. It's a subject, the same as science and history. It has a place, it is important. And I think it's a great outlet as well. It's therapeutic. I don't think we'd have half the anger issues if people actually were able to, throw paint on a canvas or write out their feelings in a journal. And I think a good alternative, if it keeps going the way it is, and let's say in a horrible scenario, art is removed from schools, I hope that people would take up the mantle of saying, right, well, I'm going to run a workshop for children to be able to. It doesn't even
Yes.
have to be a masterpiece. It's just playing with glue, getting your hands covered in paint, picking up a crayon. It's just the ability to say, this is my imagination and I'm going to create something. Because not only, like you said about the making the piece, she was proud to have that and say, I did that, this is for you. You can't replicate that feeling. That feeling is second to none. And every adult should be able to experience that. So I hope that if, hopefully they don't cut art completely and they see the importance of it. Because let's go back to lockdown 2020. Everyone immediately turned to watching content online. Well, that had to be made. Watching TV shows. Well, there's your theatre kids listening to music, your musicians. They were creating, they were hobbies. I mean, small businesses surged because people were allowed to be creative. And it's a
Absolutely.
shame that no one sort of learned from that. It's a shame, because art has so much to offer, and it's such a booming industry as well. People think, oh, well, you're going to be a broke artist. There are so many things out there. Long gone are the days where you're sitting in the attic painting away. You can be a curator, you can be an actual artist or a game designer. I mean, the money that's in video games is insane as well.
It
So
is.
yeah, people should be able to have the opportunity to foster that feeling of imagination and creativity. And I hope that can continue.
Oh my gosh, that is, oh my God, that's so true. And when they make these little games, even for toddlers, I think that maybe they could put some software, on these games that would bring out the art creativity in children, instead of some of the things that they do put there. I mean, they're going to get their math. That's going nowhere. They're going to get their reading. That's going nowhere. Put something else into some of these programs for them to bring out things that may be lying inside of these children and bring out those talents. So absolutely, that is just so amazing. I'm glad you said that, matter of fact, because the gaming industry, uh, all of these things that these kids are connected to, that is an alternative for them in
Mm.
case they do remove some of the programs in school. Never really thought about that, but yeah, you're absolutely right on that. And right, during COVID, look at how many people that were unemployed that, like you said, they went in and started businesses or found out that they were good at doing something else. And they did it. And some people actually, not everybody suffered during COVID, because some people became millionaires because they saw a need and they addressed that need. They found a way to address that need and they made money from it. So yeah, that was big. That was definitely big. And thank you for that. So what do you, Amy, think is important to connect people internationally when it comes to the world of art and what's happening?
So I think being able to be inspired is, it's important for any artist, because I think if you were to just, it's the same as if you're a writer or any creative venue, but if you were to just sit in a room, where's your inspiration coming from? As humans, we live our experiences, we are our experiences. So being able to connect with people internationally, we're getting different stories, different histories, different cultures, different backgrounds. It's so rich to pull from. I if you hadn't guessed earlier with my talk on Persephone, I love mythology. I love folklore. I
I do
love
too.
learning about, I just love learning different, I just think it's amazing and these different stories. But, if I had just sat in my room, I wouldn't have known half of those things. But being able to connect and research, I could speak with someone, in a different country, and they could say, "Oh, we have this," and in regards to art, learning about different artists, connecting with different artists. It goes back to what I said about being able to, put yourself out there. There could be someone who loves your art in the other side of the world, and they're willing to spend such and such on it. And I think that's a great thing to do. I mean, I've had prints that I've made be sold in Korea and America and Canada. And I think, well, that would have never happened if I had just kind of sat here twiddling my thumbs. So being able to connect with people internationally, I think it's an amazing feat. And I'm glad that, I live in the time I get to do that.
That's incredible. And also, I believe like now people can actually host exhibitions and present their art galleries and promote their art galleries right online. And you don't have to physically be in a physical building. So I think that's amazing too.
Oh yeah, definitely. I remember during COVID, so towards that, I was coming to the end of my master's, and we had all found out that obviously everything was closed down. We were not having an end of year show, to which a lot of people were upset. Some of us were quite glad because we were tired, but um, it was sad that, we didn't have that experience, but there was a lot of online showcases, people on different platforms and who had built these virtual worlds who'd say, hey, we know that there's a lot of art students who are not having that ability. We've made this for you. And I was featured in some of them, and it was amazing to just, you're on your phone, you turn around, there's your work, there's your peers' work, and it didn't obviously fulfill everything, but it fulfilled something to be able to say, well, actually, someone who might have not been able to come to my physical show could see this. And I think that's great. I think it's a great way of connecting and networking with people like both of us. Otherwise, if we didn't have the internet, we wouldn't be talking right now.
That's it.
So
Absolutely. Because the last time I was in London was in 2011, and that was only for a layover a 10-hour layover going over to Johannesburg, South Africa. So how do you think art collectors are affected by being able to buy art for all different places in the world via the internet so easily?
So, I mean, many people might say that it kind of saturates the market, but isn't any market saturated with how many
All
people
day
there
long.
are?
Mhm.
So I think just again, I think it offers more opportunity. And I'm very much an optimistic in the sense that, you know, there's more for everyone. For every artist there are, there's a curator. For every artist, there's a buyer. So I think that the ability to, say, this is me, and the ability to be like, oh, I want that artwork, I think that's good. I think that it opens more avenues for people to be able to express themselves.
I heard you mention curators a couple of times in this conversation. What exactly is a curator?
So a curator is someone who, with a body of work, will put together a show. And it can be either a similar theme or maybe a singular artist, but it's kind of more, if the artist creates the work, the curator kind of organizes it.
Okay.
Sense. So I think when it comes to exhibitions, whether they're digital or physical, the curator's role is to basically weave that narrative to the public or the viewer in a sort of way that makes it coherent. So if, for example, let's say the theme was blue and you had all these different types of artists and artwork, as a viewer, you want to be like, okay, well, what's the story here? What's going on? Because we always try and look for understanding. We're always looking for meaning. It's why a lot of people sort of kind of get lost when they're just like, what does this mean? Where's the little plaque and things like that? So a curator will be able to kind of make that for the viewer and be like, well, actually, we've got Picasso's blue period, and then we have this whole thing about the ocean and it connects like this, and they kind of be able to almost draw that thread through all the pieces.
Hey, today our world is just inundated pretty much with all things AI, right? Um, so how think about the impact of artificial intelligence on our world?
So for me personally, although I try and be optimistic, I feel that there's a bit of uncertainty within the art community, and especially if you look online, that a lot of people feel that AI is taking away from them in the sense of stealing their work, basically.
Hmm?
And there's this sort of, I'd refer to it as a small revolution, because people say, well, I've spent hours, times, years perfecting my craft for someone to type it in and get it instantaneously. Is there a place for AI? I think so, because I think you can't fight against it. And I think to do so would be damaging, because it's like if you tell a child no, they're going to do it all the more. And I think it's the same with that. So there's a place for AI. In the art world, maybe if there's a gallery and they've made an AI audio for blind people so they get to experience the work, I think the place fits there. Do I think the place works when you're taking creativity away? No. And I think especially if it's being monetized, it's not good. And I think it needs to be addressed by art laws or anything, copyright laws, anything like that. But I think you won't be able to fight against it like any form of technology. It kind of comes in and people initially are overwhelmed, they're uncertain, and it is scary. It is scary to think, well, hang on a minute, am I going to be replaced by a machine? Hopefully not, because I think there's something in creativity, and whether that's art, music, writing, it's so human, it's so raw, and you can't replicate that. And I hope that that kind of fire, that passion of people have, is enough to sort of say, well, actually, you know, I know this is AI, I know this is by a human, I want to support that. So I hope that sort of AI over time will kind of filter into its lane and it doesn't sort of become robots taking over sort of thing.
But it's like AI is there, and we cannot deny its existence or its impact. I guess we just have to find a way to coexist with it.
Mm. And I think that's like any sort of form of technology is it's scary at first because it's new. And, we tend to be afraid of things we don't understand, but putting the research in, learning about it, you get more of an opinion on it. Don't A lot of people will just say, read something online and go, oh, bad. Like anything, there's good and the bad. We need to fully understand what that is and how it will affect us before we make rash decisions.
Absolutely. And I look at art too. Like one of my favorite songs back from the 80s was the collaboration of the artists when they did We Are the World. Um, Michael Jackson and all of the big name people. And that song was able to really it just brought a sense of unity, around the globe because this was a global project. And I think that art has that same potential to, we look at the state of our world now, and it just seems like everything is on fire. And I think art has the potential to change the narrative in a sense, to show people that no matter how bad things appear, good is still there. And art can fill that void because so many people right now can't see much good in our world. When you think about climate and all the things that are happening, the violence and all. This is where I look to the artists to give us something that
Mm.
will symbolize hope. That we're going through something. Yes, it's not good. It's bad at the moment, but we got to keep moving forward, and something good can come of any bad situation. And I look to art to fill that void. And this is why sometimes I'll go to YouTube and just look at different pieces and say, oh, if that's hanging on my wall, if I'm feeling a certain way, I could just sit and look at that particular piece of art and just say, and it'll just change how I feel. So I know it might
110%.
be a little weird, but
No, and I think a lot of people feel that way. It's when people in offices have little holiday pictures and things to say, oh, that's keeping me going. I used to have the traditional cat hanging on the branch, the hang in there,
oh,
things like
yeah.
that. Because it keeps you going. It's motivation. And whether, artists are saying, we are here, we're in this together, I think it's that motivation to say, I'm going somewhere better and this is getting me there. And I think that's the power of art.
That is beautiful. That is just the thought, because right now I think we could depend. We need the artists, we need the musicians, we need the writers, we need those who can kind of soothe, the feelings and the uncertainty that's blanketing our planet right now, to come out and do that. And you guys got it. Because I'm telling you, I mean, like I said, not being one that's well versed in the art world, but I know when I've gone to some galleries and just walking through, there's a certain atmosphere that's there. Um, and it's just one of hope and difference and change. And things may not seem as bad as you thought. Oh, I'll look at a picture and say, I know what that artist is trying to say in that picture. Even though I really don't know for real, I put my own spin on it. But I enjoy doing that.
And I think that's it. I think art should give, it should give you emotions. I don't think there's a single piece, people may argue, but I don't think there's a single piece that doesn't provoke something. Because when you were making it, you had emotions in the process, so people would feel it as a knock-on effect, and whether you're making a piece and it's supposed to be happy, but someone interprets it as sad, that's still amazing because you've been able to produce emotion through paint, sculpture, photographs. It's an amazing thing. It's almost magic when you think of it like that, to be able to make someone feel that way. And I think it's an amazing skill.
Amazing. Amy, if someone wanted to maybe view some of your work, is there a way that they could do it? I know we can do it through our website, but is there a way that they can do it through you also?
So I mostly post on Instagram. So you can find me at Amzipan, which is AMZIEPAN. I post sort of all aspects of life there. I post art, books, very full nerdy stuff, but also a lot of the mythology as well, if someone is interested. So feel free to follow and drop me a message if you found me through here. I'd love to chat with you.
Beautiful. Thanks again, Amy, and we will talk again soon. Thank you so much.